Okay, Cliff, so just like we talked about earlier when we went through the example, again, this worksheet is going to be helping you to kind of work through these step points and kind of meeting our ultimate goal of where we can alter and change our thoughts and our thought processes surrounding that trauma so that our thoughts aren't as distressing and that we can kind of work towards improving the quality of life for you. Okay? So what we'll do now that we've got the blank ones here, let's go ahead and go through it together. Um, so of all of these set points that we just talked about, what one would you like to focus on for this example where we go through it?
Um, Probably the one where I think that it's my fault that the lady in the crosswalk died because I should have seen her.
Okay, let's get into that. So kind of looking at this, we're just going to start at the first one. So what evidence do you have for and against this step point? It's like what would lead you to feel that evidence that it's true?
Just that it was my fault that
Okay.
it happened.
Okay. And then I guess against, like what thoughts do you have against that kind of disprove that thought or that step point?
I guess it could be because she decided to cross when my light was green.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, like you said with that, I mean, you do bear, some responsibility, right? And just the fact that you were there. But I think it's important to recognize the fact that there are other factors that go into this, and I think that's a great one to identify, right? So, kind of on that note, is your set point based on habit or fact, would you say?
I mean, like it's a fact that I hit her with my car.
It is. It is. It is. And so I guess in that regard, like kind of looking down at the next one, in what ways does that set point not encompass all of the information? Does that make sense? So like you hit her, right? But what other circumstances were in that situation?
I mean, she ran out in front of me. It was dark outside. She was standing behind a sign at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So it sounds like there's other things at work here, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you were in the car, but it sounds like she wasn't very visible. Sounds like she ran right out in front of you when your light was green, right? So there are some other factors that go into this, right? And so maybe there is some elements of habit and not just relying on facts, right? So I guess on that note, does your set point involve all or nothing terms?
Um,
Does that make sense?
yeah, I thought that it's all my fault, and she wasn't responsible for her actions at all. So like all the blame is on me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that could work that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yep, that's a perfect example of just kind of all or nothing thinking, right? Is it's just black, it's white. There just really isn't a whole lot of wiggle room in between, and that's kind of what we're looking for with this exercise. We're trying to look for the in between. Okay. So on that note, I guess kind of coming back to the story, in what ways does your set point or your belief that you're responsible for the death of that lady because you should have seen her, in what way is that set point focused on just one part of the story?
I mean, it's just centered around my actions, like just my perspective. It doesn't include hers or like what the circumstances were at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you said, I mean, it is kind of focused on like what you were doing in your vehicle, right? Whereas, as you pointed out, there's other circumstances, right? There was her choice to run out on the road. You said it was dark outside, right? I'm sure, you probably had your stereo going at the same time, right? There's a lot of distractions, right? And sometimes as much as we want to be thinking that we can avoid everything because we're alert and aware of everything, sometimes it's just not possible, right? And so that's something I think that's important that you've kind of recognized. So I guess on that note, in your mind, like where did this set point come from, right? Is it kind of a dependable source of information that you're feeling with that set point of you should have seen her?
I mean, it is for me. It's from my perspective, but the police also kind of made me feel like I intentionally hit her. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
so that didn't help.
Okay. So it kind of kind of made you feel more responsible because of the police were there,
Yeah.
right? That they were kind of, it sounds like they were kind of accusing you or
Yeah.
blaming you,
Yeah.
right? And just kind of not taking anything else into account.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like it's reinforcing that idea
Mhm.
that you have of that stuck point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And once again, we're just kind of processing this, and that's the point of the sheet, is to kind of look at all of the other factors that come into this. Why may it not be so black and white as kind of what we were initially thinking with that step point? Okay. And then I guess the last one that we want to talk about is, on that note, is like, is in what ways is your step point based on like your feelings rather than facts? You've kind of talked about the way that you felt with the police. You kind of talked about the way that you felt afterwards. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Just that I felt really terrible. I felt guilty, like it was my fault, and that I was, a terrible person.
Yeah, I mean, and those are perfectly understandable feelings and thoughts to come to, right? You've just been in this really traumatizing event, right? And it's going to be full of emotions. And I think sometimes we let those emotions get the better of us and kind of override the facts, right? And so we just kind of are filled with that guilt and are just kind of focused on that rather than looking at, maybe I am responsible, but I'm not entirely responsible, right?
Okay.
For this thing. And so on that note, that's what we're hoping to accomplish with this worksheet. This is something that I'd like for you to be able to complete on a daily basis. We're just going to go through and have you work through different set points and just kind of go through these and analyze them, and focus on where you might not be entirely to blame, right?
Okay.
Just kind of look at all of the things that go into this situation, these circumstances.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll meet next time. We'll kind of reevaluate and work on some other exercises.
Yeah.
Sound
Okay.
good?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.